Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your warm welcome and for hosting us today. I appreciate it. I want to thank all of the women and leaders and office holders who have joined us today. You'll hear from some of them, but I appreciate all of you joining us. Thanks for coming. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because I'm worried about what language I might use. I want to say three things about this despicable, lie-ridden campaign ad from my desperate Republican opponent, Bob Hugin, which stoops so low with its bogus lies that it might as well have been directed by Donald Trump himself. First point, these are lies. I know it, you know it, and Bob Hugin damn sure knows it as well. Yesterday, Crew, the top government ethics watchdog in Washington, even called my opponent despicable for putting this garbage on the air. Just this morning, fact checkers with the Washington Post gave Bob Hugin not one, not two, not three, but 4 Pinocchios for these outright lies. Likewise, the New York Times concludes that Bob Hugin's ad, quote, attempts to paint an overall unproven accusation as supported by federal law enforcement when that is simply not the case. So these were lies 6 years ago when they were pushed by an anonymous tipster to the right-wing Daily Caller. They were lies when they were first debunked by reputable news outlets like the Washington Post, ABC, and CNN, and they are lies today. Here's a March 2013 CNN report that I think spells out the lies pretty clear.
That sensational story about Senator Robert Menendez supposedly patronizing prostitutes in the Dominican Republic seemed to unravel this week. It was days before Menendez was up for re-election when the conservative website The Daily Caller said that 2 women, it would not provide their names, alleged that they'd had sex with the New Jersey senator. Now, most news organizations shied away from the unsubstantiated allegations, which Menendez vehemently denied. The Washington Post this week reported on affidavits in which one prostitute said she was paid to lie about Menendez. Here's Post reporter Carol Lenig.
What we now know is that one woman who's an escort in the Dominican Republic and one man, a lawyer in the Dominican Republic, have gone to Dominican authorities, sought immunity from prosecution for any involvement in a smear or slander campaign, and have sworn in affidavits that they were hoodwinked into making a tape of some sort where they recited a script about having sex for money with Senator Menendez and also a wealthy donor friend of his.
The Daily Caller, standing by its story, says the paper has the wrong prostitute, which, if true, would be quite a coincidence. Here's the Daily Caller's founder and editor, Tucker Carlson, with a somewhat skeptical Bill O'Reilly.
I say the Washington Post story is ludicrous. The Washington Post story was an attempt to take down our story, but if you read it carefully, and trust me, we did, it doesn't achieve that. They hold up an affidavit in their piece as evidence that the woman we interviewed was lying. We're not mentioned in the affidavit. It has nothing to do with the story we did, and in fact, it's not at all clear that the woman they're talking about is the same woman we interviewed.
That person is pretty much protected. They're anonymous. I don't know, it makes me a little queasy, Tucker.
I get it. This is one of the basic conundrums of journalism. It's something we deal with every day.
Turns out that ABC News had interviewed the Dominican prostitutes and then did one of the hardest things in journalism, refused to carry a juicy story because it was just too flimsy. Chief investigative reporter Brian Ross recounts what happened.
As Menendez campaigned for re-election last year, Republican operatives secretly went into overdrive to implicate him in a sex scandal.
Is that the same person you had sex with?
And they all provided the same story almost word for word, as if they had been coached.
Now, I can't prove that the Daily Caller is wrong in saying that its reporter spoke to different prostitutes, but the FBI has found no evidence in this case, and the caller hasn't proven that case. Based on these latest reports, it's clear that someone was out to smear Menendez and to use the media in doing so.
Hugin is spreading so many lies that it's almost hard to keep track. I'm not going to go through all of these, but let me just take a simple one for you. Hugin mistakenly cites a black book pointed out by an FBI agent while conveniently leaving out that this very same FBI agent later amended his affidavit to clarify that he was mistaken about the name Dixie, which was actually a trash company. The FBI also failed to find a single woman who could substantiate these false claims because they don't exist. They were phantoms invented by one of the most dishonest Daily Caller's right-wing fever dreams. The only women who were ever identified by the FBI unequivocally and categorically refuted these statements or recanted and admitted to law enforcement that they were paid to lie about me. Second point. It's absolutely disgusting that Bob Hugin would attack me for saying on the Senate floor that it's time we believe survivors. It most certainly is time that we believe survivors. Unlike Bob Hugin, I believed Dr. Christine Blasey Ford when she risked it all to go on the record on an attempted rape by Brett Kavanaugh. I'm proud to have voted against Kavanaugh's nomination. We should all be appalled by Bob Hugin's willingness to equate right-wing, fabricated, refuted, and recanted claims with the voices of millions of survivors across America who are finally being empowered in this society to break their silence and speak truth to power. If Bob Hugin wants to talk about believing women, then he also has to believe the women who admitted to law enforcement that they were paid to lie about me. Final point. This deceitful, despicable attack ad tells you everything you need to know about Republican Bob Hugin, that he's a slimeball, he's a misogynist, and he's a liar. Bob Hugin is down in the polls, he's wrong on the issues, and he's desperate to distract the people of New Jersey from his own shameful record. Remember, Hugin is the man who went to the Supreme Court of the United States in a sexist crusade to keep women out of his all-male dining club. Bob Hugin is the man as a greedy drug company CEO who lied to cancer patients about potentially deadly side effects, who the government accused of defrauding Medicare and marketed its overpriced drugs for unapproved purposes. The Department of Justice accused him and his company in a federal lawsuit of putting patients at risk in order to do what? To boost sales. A lawsuit that he paid $280 million to avoid trial and avoid taking responsibility. Bob Hugin is the man who supported Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation to the Supreme Court despite multiple credible allegations of sexual assault, just like he supported Donald Trump's election to the White House despite multiple allegations of sexual assault. So there you have it. My Republican opponent, Bob Hugin, is resorting to vicious lies because the truth is not on his side. He can't go after me because of my record in support and strengthening the Violence Against Women's Act, or being one of the lead sponsors of the International Violence Against Women's Act, or my lead with Senator Bob Corker on human trafficking legislation that passed and got into law, or protecting reproductive rights, or expanding health care coverage to 1 million people across New Jersey. The fact he's resorted to a blatant, debunked lies only confirms that Bob Hugin is full of it when he says that he's a different type of Republican. When you lie like this, you show the people of New Jersey you're a Trump kind of Republican. Hugin apparently not only supports Donald Trump's morally bankrupt agenda, but he's also adopted his dirty brand of lying for political gain. And today I'm releasing a new ad to set the record straight.
Bob Hugin is lying about Bob Menendez.
The FBI has found no evidence in this case,
And Hugin knows it.
it's clear that someone was out to smear Menendez.
Hugin was willing to do anything to get rich, including misleading cancer patients. Now he's willing to do anything to get elected, including lying.
One prostitute said she was paid to lie about Menendez.
Bob Hugin is willing to do anything except tell the truth.
FBI has found no evidence in this case.
I'm Bob Menendez, and I approve this message.
So as I said before, Bob Hugin is a desperate man. He's down in the polls, he's out of step with the people of New Jersey, and he's desperate to distract voters from his shameful record. New Jerseyans deserve a debate on the real issues that face their lives every day. Every day. How do we expand the health care that I began to create for New Jerseyans, 1 million New Jerseyans who have health care, who didn't have it before the Affordable Care Act, 3.8 million New Jerseyans who no longer have to worry about pre-existing condition discrimination, women who no longer have to be worried to be paid twice as much as their male counterpart in the same age group, in the same geography. The fact of being able to make sure that we can build an economy that works for all, not just for the wealthiest 0.1% of the largest corporations, as is evidenced by a tax bill that put $2 trillion on the nation's future, the next generation of New Jerseyans who will have to pay that debt, but took away our full deductibility on state and local property taxes. 1.8 million New Jerseyans get hit with an $8,000 hit for each of those families, and so much more. How do we make sure that our kids get graduated from college without graduating under a mountain of debt? These are the things that New Jerseyans deserve to have a debate on. They certainly don't deserve better than this slimiest of sleazeballs. So with that, let me call upon some of the women who are here with us today, starting with Elizabeth Meyer, the founder of the New Jersey Women's March.